Good morning, football fans, and welcome to another edition of Washington County Flag Football Live. We are live, in fact, from my personal office here in Boonesboro, getting ready for today's games. But first, let's recap last week. A quick little reminder as to what went on. In the first game, Adrenaline Rush defeated the X-Dogs 43-14. It was a game that was close early on. In fact, it was 14-7 X-Dogs at one point in the second quarter before ADR proceeded to score 36 unanswered to cruise to victory. And with that, ADR stays undefeated. X-Dogs 1-2 on the year. In the next game, Ruckus defeated the Red Knights 26-14, a game not as close as the final score would imply. Ruckus, for the most part, dominated this one, but the Knights stayed in it through key Ruckus mistakes, including a last-man penalty and turnover/drops by the Ruckus offense. Knights now have lost 9 games in a row and have lost 17 of the last 22, dating back to last fall. And Ruckus now is 6-7-1 all-time against the Knights and 5-1-1 since Scotty Scott joined. So pretty big emphasis point there is how much Scotty Scott has made a difference on this Ruckus team. And you already see it in the first game back, 26 points by the offense, which I think the high for them last year was 32 in a game where they had 2 pick sixes. So put it in perspective, already a big improvement. The defense still looks as good. This might be the same Ruckus team from the spring of 2017. Keep an eye on that. Broadax finished their game against the Warriors, defeating them 30-6. That was a resumed game from the previous Saturday. Broadax was up 16-6 when it stopped and finished out the game for 14-0 edge to win it. Broadax still undefeated all time against the Warriors. Wasn't there for that one, so I can't really give much of a breakdown of it. I left right after the Ruckus Knights game, and so these next two can't get much insight aside from what I've heard. But in the fourth game of the day, the program defeated Warriors 38-0. From what I was told, the program's defense took over and just dominated the Warriors' offense. And worth noting, speaking of their defense, the Warriors have not scored against the program in 2 years. They have played them 4 seasons, I believe, maybe 3. And in those 3 to the last 4 or 4 to the last 4, they have not scored a single point against the program. But that's that down. Another donut by the program's defense. And in the final game of the day, Top Gun defeated the Assassins 21-0. It was a close game for the most part. The Assassins only trailed 7-0 entering the fourth quarter, from what I was told, before Top Gun pulled away. If I'm wrong on that, I apologize. I just read comments and stuff when I'm not there. And other people's accounts of games. So if I get anything wrong, feel free to correct me. I apologize if I do make mistakes. It happens a lot. So Top Gun with that, undefeated going into this week. Why is that a big deal? They're playing another undefeated team. We're going to have ourselves a battle of undefeateds this week. As Top Gun will take on Adrenaline Rush. So that's going to be our game of the week. I'll have film of that one. I'll try to have it up. What's next to my priority for uploading is the ADR X-Dogs game that I shot last weekend. And then after that, I'm going to take care of Ruckus Red Knights. And maybe if I find time in between, we'll post that Broadax Doom Squad game that occurred. But for now, let's take a look at our schedule for this week. And then we'll get into the power rankings before we get into predictions. We're going to have, starting out with 9 a.m., the kickoff game, Warriors versus Ruckus. Ruckus leads the series 4-0 all time. Worth noting, however, and since this series started in the fall of 2016, the score differential has been getting closer and closer. The first time they played, the Warriors' first ever game, Ruckus beat them 34-0. The next time they played, Ruckus beat them 24-6. Already, you see the margin drop from 34 to 18. And that was against one of the Ruckus's best teams. You go down even further. Last fall, 33-24 Ruckus. You cut it down from 18-9. And then just about a few months ago, it was 7-6 Ruckus, down to 1. Now, I know the Warriors have not looked good so far this year. This is a must-win game for them. So keep an eye on this matchup. They're sitting right now with a 4-game losing streak if they lose this one. They've been able to compete with them. So I think this is going to be an underrated game of the week. Keep an eye on that matchup. Warriors Ruckus, 9 a.m. That's going to be worth watching. I'm not saying it's like this key big game. I still feel like it's going to be a very good, underrated, competitive game. The Warriors and Ruckus, 9 a.m. once again. Kicking off right after that is the Hoffman Bowl, Red Knights versus Broad Axe, 10:30. The rivalry continues. The Knights are seeking to end Broad Axe's win streak against them. Broad Axe has won 13 straight. The Knights' last win was in October 2014. That was my first season here. A 31-20 Knights victory. Broad Axe beat them later in the regular season and again in the league championship game. And ever since then, the Broad Axe dynasty has been running strong. The Knights had a shot at stopping them for a while there, but Broad Axe ran very strong after that, and the rivalry itself has become one-sided. And while Broad Axe may not be that Broad Axe team of old, they can still very much take this league back very quickly. And so you look at this matchup, Broad Axe and Knights, this is a key game for both. Because in the Knights' case, you got the streak. They have not beaten Broad Axe in 13 straight games. And for Broad Axe, you're looking at a team that is already off to a hot start. They look a little bit like the Broad Axe of old, but one could argue they haven't played anybody yet. Maybe Warriors aside, but their other opponent was the Assassins. And right now they combine for 0 wins between the two. So is Broad Axe beating up on smaller guys, or is it more of they are back to business? We'll see. I think it's going to be a test for them because the Knights are going to come in really focused and really determined. They played them tough last season. Remember that. 24-20 was the final of that one. And that was with one of the worst Knights teams in years. Same for Broad Axe. And that Broad Axe team was 5-3, even though it was one of their worst. So it's just one of those things where you look at it, there should be a gap between the two, but it feels like there really isn't. I feel like when it comes to 1v1, it's going to be very close. So with that, had a notification. The noon kickoff will be Top Gun versus Adrenaline Rush, Battle of the Unbeatens, Battle of the I-81 corridor, both teams based out of West Virginia and Virginia. Game of the week. ADR leads the series 2-0, but only if you count, the TMT days. This will be the first time that Top Gun has played the official Adrenaline Rush team. This is going to be a measuring stick game for Top Gun. They've already proven to handle the bottom half of the B bracket. But is Top Gun an A team themselves? That's the big question. They looked so far apart, but this may be just a B bracket champion disguised as an A team. We'll see. I think this game against Adrenaline Rush will tell us a lot by the end of it. It is worth noting, however, when they did play ADRs, when it was TMT last year, it was only a 21-7 final when they played that game. But like I said, it's a lot different now. ADR is significantly improved. But don't underestimate Top Gun. This is going to be a good game, too, I feel like, at least early on. The next matchup on the schedule is the Assassins versus Adrenaline Rush at 1:30. ADR leads the series 2-0 all time. Remember the last meeting, it was 60-6. The Assassins will have their best shot at ADR today, as they'll be fresh against a team that's already played Top Gun. And the final game of the day will be Top Gun versus Misfits, a 3 p.m. kickoff. Misfits playing only their second game. They haven't played in 3 weeks, so we'll be glad to see them finally back on the field, at least here in our league. So let's get to our power rankings real quickly. I check the comments section. Skyler, good morning, bro. You got kicked off from Warriors, or what happened? If you're still watching, put in the comments. I'll look at it later. Let's get to the power rankings real quickly. Week 3 is coming upon us. I'm not going to count 2 weeks ago because it was just 1.5 games. So look at our Week 3 power rankings. Number 10 now is the Assassins, 0-3. The Assassins play Top Gun tough for the most part, but once again can't get the offense going. And number 9 are the Warriors, 0-3 as well. The Warriors season took a turn for the worse, and they sit at 3-game on a 3-game losing streak right now as their offense was dominated again by opposing defenses. Since their 18-7 lead against Top Gun, the Warriors have been outscored 82-6 in 10 quarters. Teams averaging almost a touchdown per quarter against them. That's just insane. And number 8 is the Red Knights, 0-2. The Knights kept it close with Ruckus early on, but at the end of the day, the Knights just didn't have enough to score the upset. Yeah, I swapped these two, Knights and Warriors. I feel like the Red Knights and their losses have looked better than the Warriors have. I mean, Warriors did play Top Gun tough, but I looked at the downward slide they've been on ever since. It doesn't seem like this team's getting up, at least against the A talent. They might bounce back against B, but right now they're looking like a very low B team. Whereas the Knights, I feel like they look like they have a lot more fight to them. That's the thing. There have been ways their games have been kept close, but there's a big difference between that team I saw last season and this one. This one seems like they do care, at least somewhat. But we'll see. Like I said, their game against Broadax this week will be a huge test for that. Number 7 is the X-Dogs. They started out fine, but once ADR snapped out of their mistakes, it was over. A big part of that first half was penalties, really aiding X-Dogs, but it was all self-inflicted. Thanks to my colleague, Tyler Spencer. Shout out, T-Spence. I don't know if you're awake or not. You'll probably see this later before the games start. This broadcast meant to be watched throughout the morning. Give you guys something to listen to before we start the games off. I'll be not live streaming. I'll be filming, so I'll have the footage as soon as I can once again. But going down to number 6 now in our rankings is Ruckus, 1-0. They made some mistakes against the Knights, but they did just enough to win. Looked like a really good Ruckus team, to be honest with you. There's a little try, so they look like a really good team so far, at least in that first game. I feel like they're going to be, once again, that team who's scrappy against A's competition, and they might actually beat one of the teams who made the playoffs last year from A. That was something about them last season was they did not have a single A win. They only beat B teams. In fact, they were 5-0 against B, which got them in the playoffs. So, but I feel like this team is possibly a step or two up, but we'll see. We'll see. Long season ahead still. They're the freshest of every team. So we'll see what they do. Coming in number 5 is Top Gun, 2-0. Top Gun took off this week, bombing 3 touchdowns on the Assassins, setting up a showdown with ADR Misfits, which big week ahead for Top Gun. If they really are back to being the A team they were last fall, then they'll at least be competitive in these 2 games. And I know that sounds stupid, like, well, why would they pull a win? Because Top Gun last fall didn't beat an A team, but they were competitive enough. They did enough to stay in the game. They were scrappy. And that takes a lot of heart and spirit. And at least getting back to that level, considering the bottom pit they were back in May, is a huge deal. So Top Gun, big test this week. They're top 5 right now, but will they be top 5 at the end of the season? We'll find out. Number 4 is Broadax, 2-0. Broadax seems to have righted the course, at least against the B bracket, but it remains to be seen if they are A caliber. Number 3 is the Misfits, 1-0. The Misfits were off this week, but will return again against Top Gun. We'll be happy to finally see the Misfits take the field. Number 2 is the Program, 2-0. The Program wrecked the Warriors behind the dominant defense. The performances, all 3 sides of the ball, came together for the Program this week. A complete game again. Good job, Program. Showing they're doing what they need to do to be a successful team, dominating the lower teams and being just good enough or able to beat the upper teams. And they seem like they maintain that course this season. Maybe they're even better. So we'll see how it goes. And number 1 on the list is Adrenaline Rush, 2-0. ADR struggled early on, but took over the X-Dogs and was able to put them down at the end of the day. So ADR still number 1. Will they hold on to it? They have 2 chances to blow it, but I get the feeling they're going to blow up the 2 teams they're going to face instead. We'll find out in our prediction column. So I checked the comment section again. Skylar on the Program. You know what? That's a good signing for them. That's a really good signing. Just being a Program. Skylar's on there. That's awesome, dudes. Glad to have like at least 3 former survivors on there. Shout out to Skylar. Shout out Carasquillo. Shout out Cocho. Hey, shout out Dan Friend. Shout out to Dan Friend too. I went to middle school with that guy. Good old friend of mine. Looking now to the prediction column for the week. If I get back to my paper here. Yeah, I got a script. It's too early in the morning to improvise that much. Prediction time. Going off with it. With the first game, Ruckus and Warriors key matchup. The Ruckus offensive line versus the Warriors defensive line. In spite of the defense that has been horrible in terms of scoring D, the Warriors D line remains one of the best units in the league and brings a lot to the table. That being said, Ruckus' offensive line is good in its own right. And when everyone is there, is more than capable of being one of the best units in the league as well. The key will be Scotty Scott and his ability to avoid the Warriors' pass rush, which he did well in their last meeting with them in the fall. If he can avoid the sacks and get the quick outs to his receivers, it could be a long day for the Warriors' defense, who is already reeling after 3 losses, where they surrendered a lot of points. The biggest question to me is, can the Warriors even move the ball? 6 points in 10 quarters of play. And now they face another top defensive unit in the league. There's got to be cause for concern there. Why do I think Ruckus wins this game? Because Scotty Scott takes advantage of the Ruckus' size and speed of the wide receiver and some quick shots to avoid the rush, and the Warriors' offense continues to stagnate. But why do I think the Warriors win? This game means a lot to these guys. Ruckus has been a comparison and a measuring stick for them for years. I even said to I think I said to Ross last night on our group chat about how the Warriors to me are literally where Ruckus was in the fall of 2016. And what I meant by that is Ruckus in the fall of 2016 was a team that they had been improving every season. Their third season, they won 5 games. They went 5-5, albeit you can debate how strong the league really was that season. That was the first expansion season. But Ruckus had improved. That's the thing. The problem was all throughout 2016, Ruckus was stagnating as a team. They were the defensive team whose offense could put up points sometimes, but they just couldn't do enough to win. They'd be competitive against the lower teams, the lower A teams, so to speak, at the time, but they could also get blown out easily, which for the most part was what was happening. And it seemed like Ruckus was going the wrong direction. We wondered about them. And then they won the B bracket, the first ever B bracket. And then the next season, they took off. The Warriors remind me of Ruckus. They improve every season. But I feel like they're hitting a stagnation point if they can't get the offense figured out. Because suddenly they're back to that old problem where they were before John Show became quarterback last fall. Another reason they remind me of Ruckus. And so if they don't at least stay competitive in this game or even move the ball, it's got to be a big blow to them. They've improved so damn much. So you're going to see, like, I feel like they're going to have a lot of fight in this game. I know this means a lot to those guys. They're going to come out fighting. That's the only reason I think the Warriors win this game. It's because they come out fighting, and they want it more. They catch Ruckus off guard. They catch Ruckus thinking that Ruckus is hot shit again. That's the only way I feel that they can win this game. Because so far, the Warriors' offense has shown no signs of life against a defensive unit who was rated one of the best last season, whose offense is clicking again. And that was something I can't say about last season's team. And so I just feel like at the end of the day, the Warriors can win based on that. But what I think happens instead is Ruckus wins thanks to a passing game that slices the Warriors secondary, neutralizing their pass rush, and the Warriors offense continues to struggle to find an identity. If I were to have a score to that one, I would say Ruckus 21, Warriors, I would say get a touchdown. Let's go 7. 21-7, Brock Klein gets an extra point. So 21-7, reactive energy wheel. I'm not doing any call-ins, mainly because I'm dumb. feel like doing call-ins this morning. Maybe later tonight we're going to try to do an episode of Blunt Talk after the games. I'll be a little more awake for that one, I promise. So I'm going to go with Ruckus in this one. They're just going to win 2 scores. Ruckus by 2 scores. Second game of the day, Broad Axe and Red Knights. Key matchup. This is going to be Andy versus Tom, to me. This is going to be a chess game between these two and their minds. Both brothers know each other very well. It just becomes a question of who is able to decide the victory. And that's where this game is going to be interesting. The mental chess battle between these two captains will be the determining factor. Both are the heart of their team. The biggest question to me is, are they what their records are? Broad Axe is 2-0 and looks like Broad Axe of old. But again, against the Warriors and Assassins, who neither of those teams have a single A win in the history of their franchise, who neither of those teams have won a game this year. And I know Red Knights haven't won a game either, Joey. So why is that a bigger measuring stick? I'm saying it is because of the fact that you look at this Red Knights team, they're 0-2. But they have been in the games late against Ruckus and Misfits. And I know you could say, well, the penalties kept them in. It's like, well, they're still in the game. They're within strike. They could still threaten to win. Football is not just what happens with your offense and your defense. Penalties, in terms of execution. Let's speak like this. Let me rephrase that. Football is about execution 100%. And if you commit a penalty, that's you not executing. That's you making a mistake. And your mistakes come back to bite you. Because when you get momentum, the entire complexion changes. It becomes different. Because all of a sudden, that one mistake is biting you because it led to a domino effect. And the fact that the Knights were in those games late and could still win spoke a lot about them, to me at least. Because they could still win the game very easily. And that, to me, stands out more than Broad Axe blowing out 2 bad teams. And because of that, I feel like they're going to keep this one very close. I don't feel like they can. We'll see in a second. Let's put it like this. Here's why I think the Red Knights win. The Knights' offense seems to be clicking on a much better level than last season. And being a rivalry game, you never know what can happen. People forget this is a huge rivalry game. Last season was very close for how far apart these two were in standings. If the Knights can minimize mistakes and force Broad Axe to make those mistakes, those penalties, those incompletions, interceptions, anything, they have a real shot at winning this. This is kind of like that Warriors-Ruckus game where the team that's not as good is going to come out a lot more hungrier to me because of the fact that they need it more. And the Knights, I know, need this game. That being said, why do I think Broad Axe wins? The offense is a bit different in years past. It's a more wide-open attack, and so far it's been successful. The Knights' defense has not looked any better. That's going to be a big deal because the Knights' defense is still pretty bad. It's still pretty bad. And I can say, like, as a whole, like, the offense has improved, the defense hasn't. The defense seems like it's still the same mess it was last spring. But we'll see as it goes on. As long as they get anywhere out of hand like the ADR game last season, I think they'll improve. But for now, I feel like this could be a Broad Axe beat down if the offense is what it's advertised. I feel like Broad Axe could drop 30 on the Knights. Maybe even 40. We'll see about it. What happens, I feel like, is going to be at the end of the day, Broad Axe is going to torch that secondary. But the Knights do hang in for the most part, and with Broad Axe pulling away behind that high-powered attack, because that's going to be one of the more underrated offenses this season. It's the Broad Axe one. Keep an eye on it, at least throughout the year. And that was one of the biggest concerns I had about them at the end of the season was their offense, because I saw what kind of mess it was without Grable and without Murdiff. But so far, looks like it has some kind of legs, even though it is against warriors and it is against assassins. So scroll down a little bit in the comments section. Hey guys, good morning. Good morning, everybody commenting. Why am I up? I have a new sleeping routine. I go to bed mad early and I wake up mad early because I do a lot right now. Because anybody's been wondering why I'm so AWOL for most of this season. I'm in my senior year of college right now, and I've been getting buried with work. Like my history 337 class, shout out Ian Fisher, who's in my course. If he's watching, or if he's even a fan of this, I don't know. But like it's so brutally stupid hard. My professor is way too OCD, and I've been doing so much writing during the days that by the time the day's over, I don't want to go out or do anything. Like socializing sounds wonderful, but I'll also wake up the next morning after staying out till 2 a.m. and stuff and regret it because I had too much to do with paperwork and all that. And I'm also right now recovering from a back injury, which I'm getting figured out finally. I'm recovering a lot better. I was almost near death the first week of the season because of that and being sick that weekend. Like that heat had just the weather change had screwed me up so badly, going from 110 outside Friday to just 70 that Saturday morning. And then the back ended up flaring up on me like literally a couple of days later after Labor Day. So it was a pretty train wreck of a week. So I've been changing a lot of habits and the way I do things. Another thing is I'm actually recovering from a really bad Rockstar addiction. It sounds stupid, but ever since last January, I've been regularly drinking 20 Rockstars a week, most weeks, in order to keep up with my schedule. Like that was the way I was doing Flag as long as I did. Those Saturday and Sunday mornings, I would wake up and I would drink I would drink 2 Rockstars to start the day. That was literally how I started every single day. I would drink 2, and the third one would come later on in the day because I'd get done with Flag and I'd want to go out and do stuff, and that ended up leading to long days where I'd be going from like 6 a.m. to 3 a.m. and it's fun and wonderful and stuff like that. Don't get me wrong. I had a blast. In fact, I know I'm on a corporate page, but I'll post something in Blunt Talk later. We'll have a conversation about it. So, but that combination of me last season, being Joey Blaze last season and drinking 3 Rockstars was wonderful and fun. But it took a major, major toll on me as a whole. The Rockstars were just too much, and I think my doctor even mentioned that a lot of my current issues may stem from the overuse of it. It was irresponsible and stupid, but I just enjoyed doing as much stuff as I did, like working, hanging out, doing stuff with, the female variety. Flag football, Blunt Talk, all that. I did a lot in college on top of it because I was in college last year too. It's just this semester is a lot harder. So I'm busy AF. But yeah, I'm up early because of that. And that's just how I do life now. I get up mad early and do my own stuff and go to sleep sometimes at 8 o'clock, sometimes 9. The last few nights I've been up to about midnight. So, but it's just how I want to do things going forward in life. I get a lot more work done that way, and I'm a lot more productive. Getting back to the predictions. Sorry for that little tangent. All right. Adrenaline Rush versus Top Gun. I'm actually freestyling because I never actually finished writing these last 3. But getting to the last 3, Adrenaline Rush versus Top Gun. I feel like this matchup is going to depend on how Top Gun can play ADR from a defensive standpoint. This feels like the kind of game where if you're Top Gun, you want to hold on to the ball. You want to keep ADR's offense off the field. You don't want them on the field, period. You want to make sure you hold the ball for at least, if you really want to win this game, I'd say 35 minutes. But in order to do that, your offense needs to execute. They need to make the key conversions. They need to not make a mistake, not throw an interception. The biggest thing is that ADR defense is just ridiculously athletic. And that's going to be hard to do. Not many teams can score a lot of points on ADR. I believe since ADR has been ADR, the program scored 27 was the most they've ever had on them. And it's one of those scores was a returned lateral for a touchdown. So, if you want to be technical, that's 3 offensive scores. They don't allow many points. But Top Gun is going to have to move the ball just enough to sneak Gary Little or Ryan Lockhart in the end zone. And I feel like if their offense at least scores 2 touchdowns, this will be a competitive game. I don't feel like they can score 1 touchdown and make it a 14-7 kind of game. Because I feel like scoring 1 touchdown indicates that they did not do anything else. 2, however, at least indicates they held the ball for a while and it led to a score. 2 out of 4, 2 out of 5 possessions on offense. That's pretty decent. And it's just enough to win. But otherwise, if they can't at least score 2 touchdowns, they're not going to win this game. And I feel like ADR has the potential to blow this out of the water. I feel like at the end of the day, Top Gun will come out fighting because they always do. It'll be a scrappy, tough first half. And then ADR pulls away, wins by 3 touchdowns, just like last week. So, Adrenaline Rush wins that one. And moving on to the final game of the day, or no, 4th game. Sorry about that. I blanked when the Misfits stopped one. Adrenaline Rush and Assassins. That is going to be a 1:30 kickoff. I don't know what this is going to be brutal. It's going to be one-sided. The Assassins' best bet to win this game is if ADR burns themselves out against Top Gun. If somehow the Top Gun ADR game goes to 10 overtimes and ADR going into that Assassins game is just limping. Even then, I feel like ADR still wins by 2 touchdowns. But, like, no offense. All love Assassins, all love. But I feel like this is going to be a blowout. Assassins have shown no signs of life so far, aside from the first 2 drives of that Broadax game. They did put up a fight against Top Gun last week. I'll give them that. But I don't think the gap between Top Gun and ADR is closed. I think it's almost like a big gap between those two in terms of, like, who is better. With Assassins, they're even a little bit down further. And until their offense shows anything, they're not going to be competitive against anybody. So I'm going to go ADR big. And the final game of the day, Top Gun Misfits. Top Gun in a bad spot here. They're going to be having a break, and I think it's all universal fact that having a break between games is actually worse than playing back-to-back. Because you got to sit out there, you got to tighten up, especially against an ADR team that is going to possibly give them the biggest test on terms of cardio. So they're going to be a little bit gassed by that point and then some because they'll be tightened up waiting to play Misfits, who are coming up here to make a statement. They're going to come out here with a lot of fire because that first game in terms of scoreboard, they know it. It should not have been that score. And they're upset about how the game went, and they're going to take it out on Top Gun. And I feel like that's what happens. I think Misfits comes out, they wreck Top Gun. I'll give it 2 touchdowns, 3. It depends on who they bring up. I'm curious to see themselves what their official roster is. So that's my final prediction. I'm going to wrap this up. Feel free to watch throughout the morning until 9 a.m. or whenever games are. Come on up, North High, or Northern Middle, sorry. We're next to North High, though. Shout out and condolences. I'm going to make a side note here. I did not count any Doom Squad forfeits because let's just pretend it didn't happen. Let's just move on. We'll move on. We'll give a moment of silence. All love. Shout out to Doom Squad. You guys made history with maybe the first female player we ever had in this league, and you also made history for a team who's for the first time ever had stats that were executed by you guys have record holders by people who don't even play for your team. Shout out Brandon Michael, who had an interception. So he has the record for Doom Squad's interception all time. That's all I remember. So maybe somebody else. I think somebody else had a pick too. Someone's got to refresh me. That game's a blur to me right now. But I'm just not going to count on the standings. Let's just move on from that. We had 10 teams this season. Doom Squad was a preseason opponent. They're an exhibition opponent. But shout out to those guys. You guys tried. And let's have a moment of silence in memory of Doom Squad. All right. Move on now. Enjoy your all's mornings. I'll see you at the field. I'm going to try to have more content. I'm going to try to work on the ADR X-Dogs game while I'm up. So stay tuned for content and for some fun football frenzy out here in the Washington County Flag Football League. I'm Joey Blaze, and have a wonderful morning.